Hello and welcome to another video from the training department. I'm Adam, your training director, and this video is all about motivating teens. Oh my god, my class doesn't want to talk. Oh my god, my class doesn't want to do anything. Oh my god, my class doesn't want to play games. Does this sound familiar? It sounds very familiar to me. I've heard many teachers talk about teenager classes exactly like this. So, question is, who is to blame? Well, teenagers are going to be teenagers, and I'm going to be honest with you, there's not very much you can do to change that. However, there is something you can do. Something we can do is how can we motivate them? I promise you, there is no class out there, there is no teenager out there who doesn't like everything, okay? Everybody has their own individual likes. Everybody has their own individual thing that motivates them. Our job is how can we help to provide these motivating things to get students, get our teenage students wanting to participate in our class, and that will get rid of those horrible phrases of, oh my god, my class doesn't want to do anything. Yes, they do. They just don't want to do the things that you are doing right now. Okay, in this video, we'll explore about things you can do and how you can choose the correct activities for your class. So as I said, each individual is different. So what's really important with teenagers is we find out what they like. Ask yourself some questions. What interests my students? What do they do out of school? What hobbies do they have? What are some very popular games, popular TV shows, popular movies? If you don't know, then it would really benefit you by finding out. Find out what's popular on Netflix right now. And I guarantee you, this is what your students like. Do your students have any hidden talents? Now, after you've considered all of these questions, you're still saying, I don't really know, they don't talk to me. Well, how can you find out? You can find out by creating a survey or creating a quiz. You can ask them what they enjoy. Ask them specifically, what TV shows do you like? What music do you like? What games do you like? What are you interested in? What hobbies do you have? If you feel like they don't quite have the English to tell you this, then you can ask for assistance and do this in Vietnamese. If you're a Vietnamese teacher, you can speak to your class in Vietnamese. This is not an English test. This is getting to know what motivates your students. And if you then use this in your classes will be completely different. Give you an example of something which I have done in my classes before. My students really like anime. Anime is Japanese cartoons. What I did is we were making sentences about comparatives. Instead of having a picture of two stickmen, who one is taller than the other, I chose two characters from anime that I know my students enjoy. Then I had them make sentences saying who was taller, who was stronger, who was faster, who was more handsome, more beautiful. And instead of having the normal response from teenagers of, oh, again, I had the response of, teacher, can we write another sentence? Can I write 5 sentences? And all of a sudden they went from being unmotivated teenagers to wanting to use language because it's fun. Not because the teacher is making them study, but because I engage them with something that they are interested in. One last tip for this section is use your students' names. If in your sentences you have John is taller than Sarah, and you have students who are called John and Sarah, and then maybe in this situation Sarah is much taller than John, then it will be very funny and your students will instantly pay more attention when they hear their names done in examples. But just a quick warning, you have to be sensitive about this, okay? You're doing it for fun, to engage students, not to try and embarrass students. If you do this to embarrass students and you make silly sentences about students which make them feel uncomfortable, it will have the opposite effect. So this can be a powerful tool, but it can also be a tool, if used in the wrong way, which is very dangerous to student motivation. Okay, let's move to the next part. So I often hear from teachers, my students don't want to move around. My students don't want to get up. I want my students to walk around and do activities, but they just say, no, we're tired. So I ask you the question, is that a problem? My answer is no. What can we do then? Well, there are lots of games we can play where students don't have to move around. We can have them sitting in their chairs doing a game with mini whiteboards. We can play games like backs to the board where students can remain seated. We can have them working on their tables or even working on the floor, brainstorming vocabulary, brainstorming making sentences. So there are lots of activities that we can do where students don't have to move around. Sometimes we have to accept that teens are tired. Sometimes we have to accept, okay, teens, they don't want to move around. It's probably easier for us to change. So instead of trying to teach all of our lessons in the same way, we have to recognize that if some classes they react badly to this, then we shouldn't try to make a square be a circle. What we should do is adapt our methods to what they like. This is very related to the previous part where I talked about interests, and I talked about each student, each class has individual interests. So if they don't want to get up, is that a problem? Absolutely not. Just we need to know how to manage it, how to provide different fun activities while letting them remain seated. Okay, in the next part, we're going to learn about different learning styles. This part is about learning styles. So some questions for you. Think about your class. Think about your students. Now, think. Do you have students who are good at any of these things? Singing, drawing, running around, doing puzzles or doing logic puzzles, maths, working alone, working with teams. Are they good with words? Are they good with pictures? These are their different learning styles. What we have to realize is that their learning style might be different from your learning style. So we need to make sure that our lesson has different opportunities for different learners to learn in different ways. If you have many students who are really good at music and listening, make sure that they have an activity where they can listen. If you have students who are very visual, they love drawing, provide an opportunity to draw. Maybe if they finish early, they can draw a picture with the vocab. That will help them, one, remember things for a longer time. Two, it'll motivate them to participate in your lesson. Again, this is the same message as the previous parts. Your class are individuals. Understand the class, understand the individuals, and you'll be a great teens teacher. Okay, for the next part. Another big factor when we're talking about motivating teenagers is confidence. Sometimes teenagers are not motivated, but they're just scared. Teenagers are really scared of looking silly in front of their friends. Look, what does looking silly mean? Looking silly means getting the answer wrong. So often, as teachers, what we need to do to motivate our teenage students is help give them confidence. Here are some ways in which we can do that. When checking answers, always make sure that students have time to check with their friends first. This is a very small thing, but it can make a big difference. Because if teenagers can check and their friend has the same answers, they will feel much more confident to give that answer to the class. Next, if we're asking teenagers to say something or to try and understand something, it can be very helpful for them to see it. So often, if we want students to say something or understand it, a good way can be to show them it as well as let them hear it. This can help them feel more sure about what they're going to do, what they're going to say. Another strategy is, as students are completing a task, you as the teacher can go around and help students to understand that they have the answer correct. So if they are doing an exercise, and you can look at the paper and be like, good, number 1, this is correct, number 2, this is correct. Okay, in a minute, I will ask you to give me the answer to number 1. You have the answer correct. This way, students can feel more confident when they are asked about that answer because they know it's correct. Next, when giving students a task, they have to have a clear task, a clear time frame, and a clear way of knowing when they have completed the task. What this means is avoid words like talk about, discuss, think about. These are not good words because they are not specific. If I ask my class, think about your last holiday, they don't know when they have finished, and if they are unmotivated teenagers, they will sit there and do nothing. However, if I say, write down 3 sentences to describe your last holiday. Write down 5 words about your last holiday. You have 3 minutes. Then the task is very clear about what they have to do. It's very clear when they have finished, they have achieved the task, and it's very clear how long they have to complete that task. Me as a teacher can easily walk around and see who has completed the task, who has not started the task, and who is working well on a task. This is also another reason when giving tasks, it's a good idea to ask students to write things down. Because as a teacher, you can't be 5 places at one time. If you ask students to write things down, you can look at a glance to understand who has started, who has not started, who is doing well, who clearly doesn't understand. Then you can jump in and you can help your students, motivate your students. And this is what this part is about. Motivating students by helping give them confidence so they know what they are doing and they know how to do it. Another way we can inspire confidence is to create a culture of positive encouragement. When doing things in front of the class, we can encourage other students to say what they liked about it, what they thought that they did good. This can seem a little bit strange at first, however, if we work on it and build it into a class culture, then this can really help students. The last thing to share about confidence is it may not be that your students are not confident, it may be that your students are not motivated by the topic. Something which as teachers we don't really think that much about is how interesting is the topic to talk about, and is there a gap in information? An information gap means that I know something that you don't, which creates motivation for talking. For example, if we ask students to talk about the Lunar New Year, is there an information gap? My answer is probably no, because they kind of do similar things, so there is no motivation to discuss this. In the same context is that if we are looking at a piece of paper, all of the information is on the paper, and you ask student A to talk to student B about the paper, there is no motivation to talk about it because we can see the same information. So, when creating tasks, it's important that we instill confidence in our students and we create an information gap to create a purpose for actually communicating. In conclusion, teenagers are just humans. Teenagers are just like us. They may seem like strange creatures from another planet at times, but they can be motivated. If you are leaving your class thinking, oh my God, this class is terrible, then I'm afraid the problem is with you. If you are leaving the class thinking, okay, what can I do to help motivate these students? How can I find out more about these students? How can I understand what they like? How can I understand what motivates them? Then, my friend, you are on the track to success. It's not easy, but it can be done. Don't give up, and I hope to see you in another video very, very soon.